Hello everyone, my name is John. Welcome to today's video. Now I want to ask you a question. Have you ever wondered how things that are sugar-free sweet? That sugar-free soda, that sugar-free pudding, everything is sugar-free and zero sugar. But have you ever wondered why are they sweet if they have no sugar in them? Well, I think you'll be surprised to find out that most of those sweeteners, how they make it sweet is with artificial sweeteners. And some of those artificial sweeteners are carcinogenic, meaning they could cause cancer. So next time you pick up a pack of sugar-free gum, you might want to read the label. You reach for a diet soda, 0 calories, 0 sugar, 0 guilt. But what if I told you that in July 2023, the World Health Organization's Cancer Research Agency classified one of the world's most common artificial sweeteners as possibly carcinogenic to humans, and just 2 months before that, the WHO issued an entirely different recommendation: stop using these sweeteners for weight control altogether. Welcome to the confusing world of artificial sweeteners, where the science is evolving faster than the regulations. For decades, we've been told artificial sweeteners are the perfect solution. All the sweetness, none of the calories. They're in everything from diet sodas to yogurt, protein bars to chewing gum. According to recent market analysis, the global artificial sweetener market size was over $8 billion in 2023. According to an analysis of NHANES 2009 to 2012, approximately 25% of children and approximately 41% of adults reported consuming low-calorie sweeteners. But recently, major health organizations have issued warnings that directly contradict what food companies want you to believe. The question isn't whether artificial sweeteners are natural. We know they're not. The question is, are they actually safe? Let's look at what science really says. In July 2023, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, the WHO's Cancer Research Division, made headlines by classifying aspartame as possibly carcinogenic to humans. Placing it in Group 2B, IARC put aspartame in Group 2B, possibly carcinogenic, the same IARC group as gasoline engine exhaust. Now, before you panic, let's be clear about what this means. The IARC classification is based on limited evidence suggesting a link between aspartame consumption and hepatocellular carcinoma, a type of liver cancer. The evidence comes primarily from 3 observational studies in humans and mechanistic studies showing biological plausibility. Here's where it gets complicated. At the exact same time, another WHO committee, the Joint Expert Committee on Food Additives, or JECFA, reviewed the same evidence and reaffirmed that aspartame is safe within current acceptable daily intake level. That's 40 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. For a 150-pound adult, that's about 14 cans of diet soda per day. The FDA sided with JECFA, disagreeing with the IARC classification and maintaining that aspartame is safe. So who's right? Well, both assessments are actually measuring different things. IARC's job is to identify hazards. Can this cause cancer in principle? JECFA evaluates risk at human exposure levels, and in 2023, JECFA did not change the acceptable daily intake. It's the difference between hazard and risk, but here's what should concern you. The classification is based on studies showing effects at consumption levels some people actually reach, and the science is far from settled. Now let's talk about sucralose, better known by the brand name Splenda. You've probably seen it in the yellow packets at your local coffee shop. A 2023 toxicology study found sucralose 6-acetate caused genotoxic effects in vitro and was detectable in some sucralose samples, an important toxicology flag that needs follow-up in animal and human exposure studies. Researchers at North Carolina State University discovered that sucralose 6-acetate, a chemical compound that your body produces when it metabolizes sucralose, is genotoxic. That means it breaks up DNA. The study found that trace amounts of sucralose 6-acetate, amounts present in just one beverage sweetened with sucralose, may exceed the threshold for toxicological concern. The researchers exposed human blood cells to sucralose 6-acetate and observed DNA damage and chromosomal aberrations. Lead researcher Dr. Susan Schiffman stated, "It's something you should avoid." She added that even small amounts appeared to cause DNA breaks, a finding that raises questions about long-term consumption. And here's the kicker. They also found small amounts of sucralose 6-acetate in off-the-shelf sucralose products even before metabolism, meaning you're consuming this genotoxic compound directly. The FDA's response: silence. Sucralose remains classified as generally recognized as safe. It is also worth noting that commercial sucralose products like Splenda contain maltodextrin and sometimes dextrose as well. These are bulking agents added because sucralose is so intensely sweet that a tiny amount would be difficult to measure and use. Here's the concern for people on a ketogenic diet. Maltodextrin has a very high glycemic index. Even though the amount per packet is small, less than 1 gram, maltodextrin is rapidly digested and can spike blood sugar, which is problematic for ketogenic diets that require keeping blood sugar and insulin levels very low to maintain ketosis. But the problems with artificial sweeteners go beyond potential cancer risk. Now, artificial regulation reveals how different agencies can interpret the science differently. Now, cyclamate was banned in the US in 1970s based on animal studies suggesting possible cancer risk. But it was approved in over 100 other countries, including the EU, Canada, and Australia, where regulators concluded that the studies had limitations, and so they set safe intake levels. Aspartame was classified by the World Health Organization's IARC in 2023 as possibly carcinogenic. This prompted the European agencies to conduct ongoing studies. The FDA reviewed the same evidence in 2023 and maintained that aspartame was safe at current consumption levels, disagreeing with the IARC's hazard classification. Now, these aren't arbitrary decisions. They reflect different regulatory philosophies. European agencies often apply more precautionary approaches. U.S. agencies focus on risk at actual consumption levels. Both systems have scientific justification, but the differences means safe depends on which agency or regulator is evaluating the evidence. Different conclusions don't mean that one side is right or one side is wrong, but what it does mean is that the science is not as settled as we think. My opinion? Just avoid these ingredients altogether. We have other options, so just avoid it. That way, what effects it may or may not cause doesn't matter. In 2022, researchers at the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel published groundbreaking studies in the journals Nature and Cell showing that artificial sweeteners significantly alter your gut microbiome, and not in a good way. The research examined saccharin, sucralose, aspartame, and stevia. All four caused significant changes to the composition and function of gut bacteria. More importantly, these changes led to something unexpected: impaired glucose tolerance. That means artificial sweeteners, the very products marketed to help diabetics manage blood sugar, may actually make blood sugar control worse in some people. The effect was personalized. When researchers transplanted gut bacteria from humans consuming artificial sweeteners into germ-free mice, those mice developed glucose intolerance. The microbiome changes were driving metabolic dysfunction. Think about that. You're consuming artificial sweeteners to avoid sugar's metabolic effects, but the sweeteners themselves may be causing metabolic problems through an entirely different mechanism. This brings us to perhaps the most damning assessment. In May 2023, 2 months before the aspartame cancer classification, the WHO issued a guideline that should have changed everything. The recommendation was blunt. WHO advises not to use non-sugar sweeteners for weight control. Based on a systematic review of 283 studies, the WHO concluded that non-sugar sweeteners provide no long-term benefit for weight loss or reducing risk of diabetes, cardiovascular disease, or mortality in adults. More concerning, the evidence suggested potential undesirable effects with long-term use, including increased risk of type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular diseases, and mortality in adults. Read that again. The products marketed specifically for weight control and diabetes prevention may increase your risk of diabetes and heart disease. So with all this evidence, what are regulators doing? In Europe, the response has been cautious. EFSA and member states are conducting ongoing reviews of artificial sweeteners in light of the new evidence. Some European countries have issued advisories about consumption levels. In America, the FDA maintains that all approved artificial sweeteners are safe within current usage levels. The agency points to decades of use and thousands of studies, though critics note that many industry-funded studies show no effects, while independent studies increasingly show concerns. This is the same regulatory pattern we've seen with other additives. The FDA approved aspartame in 1974. then revoked it in 1975 due to safety concerns, then reapproved it in 1981. The back and forth reflects the complexity of the science and perhaps the influence of industry. Here's what we know for certain. Artificial sweeteners are not inert substances that simply pass through your body. They interact with your biology in complex ways, altering your gut microbiome, potentially affecting your DNA, possibly increasing cancer risk, and paradoxically may worsen the very metabolic conditions they're marketed to improve. Let's be clear about what the science tells us. IARC's 2023 classification raises a legitimate scientific concern, hazard identification, about aspartame that deserves more research. JECFA and regulators currently maintain that typical consumption below the ADI is acceptable, so regulators did not change use guidance in 2023. The Sucralose 6 acetate work and Weizmann microbiome studies are credible, peer-reviewed signals that merit attention, but they are not proof of population-level human disease yet. They do justify more study and cautious messaging. WHO's May 2023 guideline recommending against using non-sugar sweeteners for weight control is well supported by their systematic review. That recommendation is specifically about weight control and long-term benefits and harms, not an across-the-board ban for safety. The bigger question is, why are we consuming these substances at all when the purported health benefits remain unproven? The food industry profits by keeping you confused. They point to FDA approval while ignoring WHO warnings. They cite old studies while dismissing new research. They promise health benefits that the evidence doesn't support. You deserve to know what you're putting in your body. Share this video, start the conversation, and maybe, just maybe, skip the diet soda and drink some water instead. Because sometimes the best substitute for sugar isn't a chemical, it's nothing at all. I really want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Now, one of the things you may be asking is that if these chemicals pose these potential health risks, why do companies use them? Well, there are several reasons why. One is because they're cheap. They can get these things for a few $100s per metric ton. And two is because they understand that we as the public is health conscious. They understand what the words low fat, sugar-free, keto means to us. So these are buzzwords that help them sell cheap products. And lastly, because it's legal. The FDA doesn't have guidelines in place to stop some of these chemicals from being sold. And the loopholes in some of these chemical regulations is shocking. One of the biggest ones is natural flavors. Now, I have a video in my MAP 30 course about natural flavors. But in addition to that, I have a upcoming video on YouTube about natural flavors. It is the fourth most used ingredient in all of the food industry. And the vast majority of people have no idea what this is or what natural flavors mean. It's not what you think it is, but it is jaw-dropping to understand what that actually means. Natural flavors is everything but natural, but it's used. If you go to your pantry right now, you'll probably find 60 to 70% of the products in your kitchen right now has natural flavors. So keep your eye out for that video, or you can join the MAP 30 program. And of course, that training is in there as well. So I thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel. We will see you in the next video. Hello everyone, my name is John. Welcome to today's video. Now I want to ask you a question. Have you ever wondered how things that are sugar-free, sweet, that sugar-free soda, that sugar-free pudding, everything is sugar-free and zero sugar. But have you ever wondered why are they sweet if they have no sugar in them? Well, I think you'll be surprised to find out that most of those sweeteners, how they make it sweet is with artificial sweeteners. And some of those artificial sweeteners are carcinogenic, meaning they could cause cancer. So next time you pick up a pack of sugar-free gum, you might want to read the label.